I'm about to turn this into this. Let me explain. A few months ago, a friend of mine offered to give me whatever this thing is. I decided to turn it into a set of shelves, and I started by percussively disassembling it with a hammer. Before narrowing down my design, I squared all of my newly acquired scrap wood. This consisted of what seemed like a never-ending relay race between the jointer, planer, and table saw, with a water station at the metal detector. I noticed that most of the cuts of wood I ended up with were around the same thickness, but were at a variety of different widths and lengths. I decided to plane everything to the same thickness, and then make the shelves in a pattern similar to the following. Cutting these bricks was fairly straightforward, if time-consuming. After cutting the squared stock into equal width strips on the table saw, I stacked them and lined them up against the fence, cutting several at a time, and in retrospect, risking a very one-sided kickboxing match against the table saw. I feel like I'm a young kid playing with blocks, and while playing with blocks is fun, gluing them together is considerably less so. I used a piece of aluminum T-slot as a flat surface, and then glued layer by layer, sanding excess glue away in between glue-ups. Butcher block designs are pretty common, but I thought it would be cool to try a hybrid design with a single long piece of wood in the middle. So the glue-ups I'm currently working on will form the side patterns, while I'll use a single piece of redwood for the middle and strips of walnut on the edges. Before gluing everything together, I have to cut and square everything to the proper dimensions, which is what I'm doing right now. After gluing everything together, I planed the shelves flat, cut them to length, and cut a slight draft on each side for aesthetics. I decided to maintain the geometrical look of the shelves and broke the edges with a small chamfer. Before coating, I plugged any non-conformities in the grain with a mixture of wood glue and sawdust, and then I sanded each part from 220 to 320 grit. This took a few hours. My coating process consisted of an initial stain followed by several layers of polyurethane. I started by applying the stain followed by the first layer of poly, and then sanded lightly in between poly coats. And on a side note here, I've started using disposable foam brushes instead of conventional paint brushes, and I have to say I don't think I'm going to go back. They're extremely convenient and cheap, I don't have to avoid bristles falling onto the part, and I don't have to deal with cleaning them. The only downside I've found is that they're more fragile, so I'm a little careful while I'm using them. And with that, the woodworking portion of this build is complete. I'm quite happy with the unique look of these shelves, and I think they're going to look awesome in my home. In my next video, I'll cover the fabrication process for the steel structure holding these shelves together. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you feel I deserve it, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.